Because the truth is, there will always be more to build and to heal and to understand. But if you keep making your aliveness conditional on all of that or on a specific season, you will miss your life while trying to perfect it. Welcome to Intuition Unlocked, the podcast for women who feel overwhelmed, disconnected, or like the version of themselves they're living no longer fits. This space empowers you to trust your intuition, restore inner and outer coherence, and reclaim self-trust so you can show up more clear, bold, and self-led in your life. I'm your host, Olivia Ashley, and I'm so glad you're here. Hello, and welcome back to Intuition Unlocked. I'm so happy to have you here with me today because I'm going to talk about something I think many of us move through, especially in seasons where we feel restless, disconnected, or like we're waiting for life to fully begin. Often these seasons bring with it a pattern of constantly looking for clarity, more signs, and more confirmation, when what we may actually need is to stop postponing our lives and start fully inhabiting the one that's already here. Because sometimes what feels like confusion is not actually a lack of direction. It's a result of pressure, overthinking, nervous system overwhelm, and our old conditioning that makes us believe peace, contentment, and self-trust are things we have to earn. So today we're going to talk about why so many of us keep asking for signs when deep down we already know more than we think. How self-worth, nervous system patterns, and spiritual seeking can keep us stuck in cycles of discontentment, and how to come back into the present moment so you can stop waiting to feel ready and start living now. So if you've been feeling a little lost or a little disconnected, or like your life is somehow happening just outside of you, this episode is for you. Let's get into it, because personally, I've been noticing this pattern in myself a lot lately. And what I realized is that for me, this doesn't show up just as overthinking or wanting more clarity. It often shows up as a subtle inability to fully relax and enjoy my life. There's this tendency to feel like there's always something more I should be doing, figuring out, or becoming before I can really exhale or allow myself joy here and now. And I even realize that this pattern I have is always in these periods of pregnancy and postpartum, that when I'm pregnant, I become deeply content in my life. I feel so grounded and easeful. I relax into my body and what's going on in life. I prioritize myself more and my family more. I naturally slow down and get creative, and I just tune into what matters and flow more. I still do things, but I don't feel the same internal pressure that I feel when I'm not pregnant. I actually feel truly happy, rooted here, and content. And then something shifts after I have the baby, especially around 1 to 2 years postpartum. Life starts moving again, and my work leave ends, and life becomes real, and this old energy of discontentment starts to creep in. It's this pressure, a subtle panic, this feeling of not doing enough, of being behind. And very slowly but profoundly, I'm mentally spinning around all the things I'm not doing or figuring out or becoming fast enough. I start comparing myself to other people. I start looking outside myself to what do I need to get done? How do I do it? And what's so wild is that honestly, externally, not much has changed in my life in the way that my mind is making it seem. I still have the life I love. I still have my path that I'm walking. I still have my desires and direction and things I care about that I had when I was pregnant. But internally, I start feeling lost and confused, even though rationally, I can kind of understand that I don't think I'm actually lost, but I'm stuck in this anxious, stressed, confused loop. And I wonder if you've ever felt that too, if you can relate to this in any way. Like your life can be objectively full, beautiful, meaningful, and yet your mind and even your body can still convince you that you're somehow missing it, that there must be more you should be doing, more you should be building, more clarity or things you should have by now, or more proof that you're on the right path. And I also realized recently that in these moments, when I start spiraling, I ask for more signs, more clarity and confirmation that I'm okay. I want more proof that I'm doing it right or more evidence that I'm on the right path. But what I'm really doing in these moments is I'm questioning. I'm not trusting myself. I'm giving into my more mental monkey brain and my stress than I am my intuition and my internal guidance. And I think that many of us do this or some form of it at some point in our lives. And what has really been shown to me so clearly through doing this once again in my postpartum period is that this actually isn't about not knowing what to do. It's not even about needing more clarity or being off path. I think it's a result of what happens when I lose access to the version of myself that knows contentment and how to be in my life without constantly measuring it. Because when that pressure comes back online, I stop relating to my life from presence and intuition, and I start relating to it from performance. And that's when I realize that this goes much deeper than just a monkey mind or overthinking or some stress or wanting more signs, that there is usually a hidden story underneath it. And I think one of the most important things to understand when we chronically feel unsettled, confused, or discontent, especially when we cycle through it, where we move between those feelings and then into contentment and ease and joy, and then back into unsettledness and confusion, is that it's not always because something's wrong. Sometimes it's an old story that's being activated, something that we've been doing and holding inside of ourselves. And I think the old story I've been seeing in myself is that my worth, value, and ability to feel deeply okay in my life is tied to specific circumstances, like what I'm doing, building, or becoming. That's a big one. And I think many women are carrying some version of this. Maybe yours sounds like, I'll be at peace when I know my purpose more clearly. I'll feel good when my work is finally working. I'll feel grounded when I become more disciplined. And I'll feel fulfilled when I finally become who I'm meant to be. And the trap with this is that this sounds noble. It sounds and feels growth-oriented, spiritual, and ambitious. Yet underneath is often a very painful belief that who I am right now is not enough to fully inhabit. And if that belief is running quietly in the background, then of course this present moment starts to feel like a waiting room. You stop living your life and you start evaluating it. You stop inhabiting your path as much and start auditing it. You stop noticing what is already working and you start obsessing over what hasn't arrived yet. And what an exhausting way to live, because then life is never actually here. It's always just beyond you. So let's talk about why this happens on a psychological and nervous system level, because I think it matters to understand. A lot of us have been conditioned through our family systems, school, media, culture, religion, society, or simply the emotional atmosphere we were raised in to believe that safety comes through performance, that safety comes through being productive or useful, being ahead and good, being clear or having a plan, that we must earn rest and earn our peace. So when you're in a season where there is less external structure and certainty or less visible output, your nervous system can start to interpret it as unsafe. But not because it's actually unsafe, but more because your body has learned to associate not doing enough with instability. So that's where it gets really important to understand that your nervous system does not only respond to reality, it responds to meaning. So if your internal meaning is tied to feelings like, I'm behind, I'm wasting time, I should be further along, I need to figure this out now, if I don't keep moving, I'll lose momentum, value, or possibility, well, then your body begins to mobilize around that. And that's when you start grasping for answers. That's when everything suddenly feels urgent and you become less able to hear your intuition, not because it disappeared, but because your system is flooded. And this is why clarity often disappears the moment we become desperate for it. It's why we miss the signs that are usually around us, cheering us on, but we're not able to see or touch them. Because your intuition is usually not screaming over panic. Your intuition tends to become more audible when there's enough inner safety to receive what is already there. And so this is why for so many women, the issue is not, I need more intuition or signs or clarity. It's actually, I need to become safe enough to stay with myself in the present moment. that offers a very different path for us. And with this understanding, my personal story becomes such a mirror for me. And I think there's a few layers to why this state emerged that anyone can relate to. Firstly, pregnancy brings big biological and hormonal shifts. Pregnancy often creates a different relationship to our body, time, and energy. Our system naturally starts to orient towards preservation, nourishment, and embodiment, which allowed me to feel ease, happy, and content just being pregnant. Everything else didn't feel so big or worrisome. And all of us, especially women, are moving through consistent biological and hormonal shifts all the time. Think of our monthly cycles. Think of the moon and how it affects the waters and the nervous system. Think of stressors or sickness. We are ever changing, ever shifting in our bodies at any time. And pregnancy is just one of those big containers and shifts that happen to us in our lifetime. The second piece I realized is around permission. Pregnancy often gives women a socially accepted reason to slow down. And it's one of very few socially accepted reasons to be afforded more care, understanding, and time away from work. And with this permission, gives us the allowance to rest and prioritize, to say no more often, to turn inward and become more selective with where we put our time and attention, and to focus on what is essential. And what that reveals is quite profound, that sometimes we are not struggling because we don't know how to live well. Sometimes we are struggling because we only allow ourselves to live well under certain circumstances and conditions. And when we understand that, that's huge. Because if you were able to access contentment, groundedness, softness, joy, and alignment in one specific condition or season, such as pregnancy, then those states are not foreign to you. They are not unavailable to you or future self traits. They are already within you. But our society does not prioritize them or allow us to feel them outside of this. And that leads to us only accessing those states and having them come online when your system believes it's finally allowed to stop performing. And I think that's worth grieving a little, because how many of us have only ever felt permission to soften when there's a valid enough reason? A pregnancy, a breakdown, an illness or sabbatical, a crisis, a death, a burnout. And then once you get through it and ordinary life resumes, that old machine starts up again. And that is not a personal failure. We must remember that. That is conditioning, programming, that is societal beliefs. And while some of these we can't change, we can start to see it differently and make different choices and reset and reprogram our nervous system and beliefs to open a different path. So that helps you understand more of the psychological aspects of what is going on and where this is coming from. So let's talk about the spiritual layer of this as well, because I think this is where a lot of us get stuck. There's absolutely nothing wrong with signs, synchronicities, or asking the universe for guidance. I believe in all of that deeply and wholeheartedly. But there is a difference between being in relationship with life and outsourcing your authority to it. And I think sometimes we use signs as a form of hesitation, a way of saying, I don't really want to move until I'm certain. I don't want to choose until I'm guaranteed it's the right path. I don't want to commit until I'm fully confirmed. I don't want to rest until I know it's right for me. And I don't want to be responsible for my life unless the universe makes it obvious. And I say this with so much compassion because I've been here, I've done this. But I think the truth is that a lot of what we call needing clarity is actually a fear of self-trust. Because if you decide and choose, if you move and stop waiting, then you actually have to live and get vulnerable and step into the unknown. You have to inhabit your life instead of just circling it. And that's very vulnerable and scary because now you're not just receiving signs. You're becoming someone who takes action and allows signs to come forward in response to them. Because often signs only make sense after we take the movement or action, not before it. It sometimes can. Sometimes a sign can come forward and help us take that action. But when we're in this space of confusion and stress and feeling lost, it gets really hard to notice the signs or understand and take meaning from them. Sometimes we only get out of this confusion and find the clarity when we step into a decision, not when we wait in stillness. And so that's a different relationship to intuition. It's not tell me what to do. It's I'm willing to move with what I already know, and I trust myself to get more signs and understanding and little nudges and pings as I go. And when we're in that space, existing in that reality, you are sovereign and you are mature. It's where intuition becomes a way of living, not just a way of searching. It takes intuition into a space where it's a natural companion to you versus a compass you pick up sometimes when you're feeling lost or confused. It moves into this anchored foundational state within yourself that you know is always there. You're always in relationship with it, co-creating, understanding, listening, and adjusting, but you also have to live your life. You also have to take action and show up and live. And it becomes this beautiful dance that happens, this beautiful relationship that blooms within you. So this is where we can step into discernment. Because if every hard feeling or confusing moment gets interpreted as a sign to yourself that something is wrong with you or your path, you will constantly destabilize yourself. You will pull up your own roots and you'll keep starting over energetically, emotionally, and mentally. And that will create more confusion. So one of the most powerful questions I think you can ask yourself in these states is, am I truly off path, or am I just not present to the path I'm already on? Because that question changes everything. Often what you need is not a whole new life or a whole new sign or this big shift in action. It's you need to come back into relationship with the one that is already yours, the life that is here. So how do you do that? What do we do with this understanding? How do we actually begin shifting out of these cycles and only feeling content in certain conditions and situations? Well, I think the healing begins when we stop making the next version of ourselves the keeper of our peace. When we stop saying, I'll relax, win. I'll be happy, win. I'll feel settled, win. I'll start living, win. And instead we begin asking, what if the life I'm waiting for is hidden inside the life I keep overlooking? That's a powerful reframe because I think many of us are not actually craving more. We are craving deeper contact and connection with what already is. We want more intimacy with our actual lives, more permission to enjoy them, to feel full in them, to feel alive, and to rest when we need to, and more willingness to be in them without constantly trying to optimize them. And that doesn't mean being passive or not having desires or growing. It means your desires are no longer being used as evidence that the present is insufficient. That is a big difference because you can still want more. You can still create and build and expand. But this shift allows you to do so from a place of my life is already here and it's enough, not my life begins when I become enough. And that distinction makes a big difference. So I want to leave you with a few grounded shifts that I think are really supportive if this is where you've been living. And not as tips, but more as invitations. And so take what resonates and leave the rest. The first one is to notice when you're seeking clarity from dysregulation. So before asking, what's the sign or what's the next step, ask, what state am I in right now? And what do I need? Am I exhausted, flooded, lonely, overstimulated, comparing? Because a dysregulated mind will often call its panic intuition, and those are not the same thing. So sometimes the most intuitive thing you can do in these moments are to take a break, to go for a walk, to set your phone down, to eat something nourishing, to breathe or lie down. Start simple. The second one I can offer is to stop treating your life like a problem to solve. Some of us are so used to self-improvement that we have accidentally turned our own lives into perpetual projects. I'm raising my hand here. And if everything is a project, such as your healing or your purpose, your motherhood, your joy, then eventually you stop living in your truth and you stop being able to feel settled here. And that's not the goal. So ask yourself, where have I turned my life into a performance of becoming instead of a place to actually be? And that question is going to tell you a lot. The next one is practice making small, clear decisions. One reason we keep asking for signs is because we are not practicing self-trust in motion. So start here with, what do I already know? What is already clear? And what decision have I been circling around that actually needs my participation? Because clarity is often strengthened through use, not endless contemplation. And this is important because you do not need cosmic certainty to make a grounded decision. Sometimes your next step is simply choosing the thing, honoring a boundary, following the pull, staying with what matters, or committing to what your deeper self already knows. And that is how self-trust gets built, and then let signs affirm your choices. And these choices can be as simple as choosing what you're drinking, what route you're driving to work, and what you're eating for the day. When you can start to get really confident and clear on those small micro decisions, the macro decisions are going to become a lot more easeful. You step out of that decision fatigue and find clarity and confidence in them. The fourth one is to recreate the state, not just the season. So you ask yourself, what was I allowing then that I am not allowing now? And this is one of the most beautiful things to ask yourself if you're only allowing ease in certain situations or seasons. Maybe in those states and situations, you gave yourself more rest, less urgency, less comparison. Maybe you felt more embodied and tender and more permission to simply exist and be in this state as you are. So I want you to pause here for a moment, take a breath, and ask yourself, who was I when I felt most at peace in my life? And what did she know that I keep forgetting? This question holds so much because your healing may not be about finding something new. It may be about carrying the version of you that already knew how to live. And the last thing I can offer is let life be enough while you're still becoming. You will always be becoming. You will always be shifting and changing. So can this season be enough, even if it's not complete? Can this version of you be worthy of being fully lived, even if she is still unfolding? Can your home, work, motherhood, body, path, or your life be met now, not just later? Because I think this is where so much healing actually happens. Not in becoming someone else, but more in refusing to keep withholding your presence from the life that is already yours. And it has a lot to offer you. So if you've been feeling lost lately, or if you've been asking for more signs, or if you've been feeling behind, disconnected, or like you need to figure it all out before you can finally exhale, I want to offer you this. Maybe you are not as far from yourself as you think. Maybe you don't need another message or confirmation or sign or breakdown or breakthrough. Maybe what you need is to come back here to your body, breath, to the season and this life, to what is already being lived. Because the truth is, there will always be more to build and to heal and to understand. But if you keep making your aliveness conditional on all of that or on a specific season, you will miss your life while trying to perfect it. And I don't want that for me, and I don't want that for you. I want us to live and notice and trust in the now moment. I want us to choose ourselves now and stop abandoning ourselves in the name of becoming or conditioning. Because our life is not waiting somewhere ahead of us. It is here. And maybe the most intuitive thing we can do next is not wait for any more signs, but to decide that we are finally willing to be here now, alive, and fully grateful. So thank you so much for being here with me today. If this episode spoke to you, I would love for you to share it with a friend or post it and tag me so I can see what resonated with you the most. I am sending you so much love. I am so grateful that you're here, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for being here today. I am truly grateful you chose to spend this time with me and be a part of this community. If this episode resonated, I'd love for you to leave a rating and written review because it helps Intuition Unlocked reach more women who are ready to live clearer, bolder, and more self-led. As a thank you, screenshot your review and email it to me, and I'll send you a resource to support your next step. And until next time, root into your truth, rise into your power, and radiate your light.